Good evening, all those who joined us tonight. Welcome to the December 2nd meeting of the Hyde Park Planning Board. Let me first confirm that all my board members are alone, and also to note that this meeting of public officers is being held under the auspices of Executive Order 202.72 by Governor Andrew Cuomo. Ms. Weiser, are you alone and not influenced by anyone else?
Yes, I'm alone.
Thank you. Ms. Wasser?
Oh, so I think it's a Wiser. Yes, I'm also alone.
Thank you. Ms. DiNapoli?
I am alone.
Mr. Oliver?
I am alone.
Ms. Dexter?
I'm alone.
And Mr. Pickett? You don't seem to be muted, but we don't have any audio for you, Brent. While he works on that, please join me in pledging our fealty to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, everyone. The first item on the agenda is a new public hearing for Dance Works 2. As a reminder, this application has been workshopped. We sent it over to county planning. We heard back that it was a matter of local concern only. Can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Chairman Dupree.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Chairman Dupree, I did receive an email from Kelly and she said she had not received the link, which was sent out this morning. I sent the link again. So far, she has not. Oh, she just joined the waiting room.
Great.
Good time.
And Mr. Zotero is here.
Good evening.
Thank you, Pete. All in favor of opening this public hearing, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye.
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 Any nays or abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. So Ms. Marcoux is connecting to audio and video, but in the interim, as you'll recall, this is the site of the former Stimson Pool service way back when for old timers. It's at 1300 Route 9G. Ms. Marcoux is not proposing any changes to the building itself, only some new landscaping for screening between residential and non-residential uses. There's Kelly. We can't hear you yet, Kelly, but we see you.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Also some fencing for screening, as well as the arborvitae, a picket fence around a play area, and some new play equipment. That's about it. Do I have any comments from consultants or board members?
Nope.
We discussed this, as I said at the last meeting when we workshopped it, and Councilman Krupnik, I don't believe that anyone signed up to speak about this public hearing.
That is correct.
So, Kelly, do you want to add anything? Sorry, just blurted it all out.
No, everything I want to do has already been proposed. So
then may I get a motion to close the public hearing with the proviso that we will accept written comments for 7 additional days.
So moved. Diane DiNapoli.
Thank you.
Can I second that?
All in favor, please raise your hand, say aye.
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 Aye. Hey, I heard Brent this time, I think. Nope, I didn't hear, but I saw his handle. The motion carries unanimously. So we'll wait 7 days. I'll write the resolution for approval up for our next meeting on the 16th. And Kelly, you'll be in and out and done.
awesome.
I think that's a good Christmas present for you, I hope. So.
An awesome Christmas gift.
And as you heard before, all of us on the board want to thank you for keeping your business here in Hyde Park and expanding into an empty building and really making the place look great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Drive by
Thank
for
you.
the Merry and Bright, where I've been working hard on making it look spectacular for Merry and Bright.
Great. Thanks again. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yes, thank you.
The next item on the agenda is also a new public hearing for Hudson Valley Hospice House. The applicants are seeking site plan as well as special use permit approval and to consolidate 2 lots. The lots are located at 31 East Dorsey Lane and 542 Violet Avenue. As most people know, we've been workshopping this application pretty extensively. The applicants are before the Zoning Board of Appeals for an area variance. The area variance is required because the scale in this district is 6,000 square feet and the applicant's proposing a much larger size for that. But given the nature of the business, it's logical that they would have to be doing something larger. So may I get a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make that motion. Ann Dexter.
I'll second. Chris Oliver.
All in favor, please say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Any nays or abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. So we've received some comments from the public, and I know we have a group signed up to speak. The way this works for all our guests is that we will first call on the consultants, then my board members, and then I will ask each of you to submit your comments. I did want to just point out a couple of things, though, from a comment that, or a letter that we received from Jillian DePressy. I believe his husband is here tonight to speak also. One of the issues that she raised was flooding. So I'll let Mr. Sotero, our engineering consultant, address this more in detail, as well as probably Michelle Zerfas, the applicant's engineering consultant. But in effect, right now, the water that flows over the site and goes onto other areas is basically sheet flow. What's going to happen is that while there's going to be some piping of some water into a stormwater detention pond, a rather large one, beyond that, there's going to be spreaders, and anything that flows over, there'll be some infiltration. The rest of it would flow over in sheet flow to the same properties it's been going on to now. The DEC guidelines are basically that pre and post construction runoff must be the same. You can't develop and have more runoff, but you also have the right to develop and not increase the runoff, just keep it the same as it always has been traditionally. That was one issue that was raised. Another was an issue of noise with emergency vehicles possibly coming in here. Mr. Kaminsky can probably address that later on if he wants to speak. It's my understanding that with these kinds of homes, you're either brought over in an ambulette from someone's private home or possibly a hospital or senior care facility, or if you're lucky, you might even be brought over by a vehicle with your family or friends. But the point is that the intent is to keep it very quiet as possible in sites like this, because you don't want to disturb on anyone's grief or on the actual person who's there trying to rest, etc. The rest of the issues I believe we'll be discussing when we get to our consultants, that perspective, the effects on from blasting or rock removal, drilling on potential wells, neighbors' wells, as well as septic. That noted, let me turn it over to you guys. Michelle, do you want to take the lead?
Sure. With regard to stormwater, Mr. DePree's property is actually upstream, and it's one of the properties that's flowing onto the site through the ditch and then through existing pipes and then back off the site. So we're going to continue that same pattern. So the stormwater in their property, they're actually not even adjacent to our property. They're a few away. So we're going to continue the same pattern of their water coming onto the property and going through the property. Other properties, for the most, everything's going to be the same as it was. As Mr. Dupree said, we'll meet the DEC standards for runoff control, controlling the rates to pre and post.
Thank you, Michelle. Anything else you want to add?
And I think that covers it unless they have other questions that I can address.
And just because most of us did a site walk last week, we did observe a wet area, I'll call it. It's not probably a traditional wetland. It's relatively small where it occurs. And this is where either spring or a ditch, a pipe, one of the two feeds, and then it's dispersed gradually off into the site. We had some back and forth with the applicants and confirmed that they're going to not be keeping that wet area that will be filled or dewatered and filled. And then they're going to create, as I said, basically a man-made wetland, you might as well call it, where the stormwater retention pond will be located. And that's just, I'm having a hard time with directions there because I think it's to the east and the north slightly from where it's located now.
That's right. Yeah.
And Mr. Kaminsky, do you want to weigh in on any issue about noise, emergency vehicles with sirens or something coming on?
Thank you, Mr. Dupree. I don't have much to add to what you said. You did an excellent job. There's no reason to expect that ambulances will be bringing patients to the hospice house. The majority of patients will be brought by invalid coach, and they don't use sirens. And as Mr. Dupree said, the expectation is that this will be an extremely quiet area out of respect and courtesy to the patients.
Thank you. I should also add for our new guest tonight that under our zoning code, a residential care facility is considered a residential use, hence the term residential care. Our code requires screening, ways to mitigate sound, to attenuate sound, noise, the lights, say from cars pulling into a parking lot, interfering with your view or coming into your house, for residential and non-residential uses. In this case, these are both residential uses, so technically no screening is required. However, the applicants are seeking a special use permit as well, which, unlike the State Environmental Quality Review Act, which considers community-wide impacts, a special use permit requires the planning board to look at impacts on neighboring properties. It's more specific to the surrounding neighborhood rather than the community. And as a consequence, the applicants have proposed significant landscaping. There's ways we're going to be trying to control noise, et cetera, but more than anything else, if noise is the issue, I do want to point out that if someone bought the site, they would be permitted as of right to build approximately 27 homes and to get 27 potential basements, wells, the sound of people mowing, driving cars, et cetera. This would have very much a lower impact than what the 27 houses would have in terms of what you would experience by sitting in your backyard right now. Also, I know that Ms. DePressy had talked about the backyard being one of the nicest things about living on the property. And I sympathize and know what you mean, but of course, the only way to ensure that you would have this open and green forever would be to somehow purchase the parcel, I guess as a group, form an HOA or something, because the use is permitted and we're not allowed just to turn down applications because there might be some impacts on neighbors. What we try to do is mitigate those impacts, work through it, which is one of the things the landscaping that's proposed would do, would be to attenuate sound and reduce potential light glare. Let me go to another consultant. Ms. Axelson, comments?
Yeah, just quickly, I have some remaining comments about some pedestrian amenities along Route 9G. And then the other thing is that we have preliminary stormwater information, and what ultimately is likely to happen is we'll have, when we have final stormwater information, we'll also have a more final limit of disturbance line. And at that time, we'll have a better sense of how much of the existing vegetation on the outskirts of the site will be able to be retained.
Thank you. That's an excellent comment. That's a great comment. Mr. Sotero?
Sure, thank you. Again, we're in the early stages of the project. We're in the seeker portion of the project. I believe, as you said, the applicants are before the ZBA for a variance. So as far as engineering items on the site, you've already touched on a couple of the the major ones that I've been concerned about, which is stormwater and also rock excavation. So if we just talk about stormwater first, so we asked the applicants to prepare some very preliminary drainage calculations to just indicate, or for my review, to show that they weren't going to be increasing the amount of stormwater runoff off the site after the project is developed, assuming the project is approved by the zoning board and then goes through our site plan approval process. But so that was one of my major concerns. So the applicant has provided some, again, very preliminary information. Based upon that, I think that we can work together to ensure that there's not going to be any impact off the site. I am concerned, along with the planning board, about the fact that currently there's no pipe or no like stream that outlets the site. As the chairman said, the main outlet to the site is basically sheet flow out the rear over I believe it's the property that where the auto body repair or the mechanic shop is. So we need to just like ensure that whatever stormwater plan is approved, that once again there's not going to be an impact. And as we've talked about in several Zoom calls with the applicant and also other calls with the planning board, I have some ideas that in terms of looking at infiltrating as much of the roof leaders as we can, and then providing an outlet to the stormwater pond. But not having the applicant's engineer take any credit for that. So that would provide another level, a factor of safety. So I think the stormwater can be managed. I'm well aware, based on my many, many years of working with the town, that this is, you know, a sensitive area. And so I'm going to make sure that there's not going to be an impact. So, so that's that. In terms of blasting or rock removal or hammering, that was, you know, another issue of mine, obviously. I've been to this site over the years. You know, I know the owner of the property. I've walked it before when he had other potential ideas for it. So, you know, I do know that there's rock outcrops there. The applicants dug a series of deep test holes in their preliminary evaluation of you know, the property. They had to, you know, ensure that they would be able to get a sewage disposal system there that would be ultimately be approved by the county health department. They did some random deep tests throughout other parts of the site. One in the area where the proposed building is going to go. So when we got the application, my other concern was obviously where adjoining houses were, and also where the wells were for those houses. So the applicant's engineer produced a map that showed the proposed building and also where the adjacent houses and the wells are. Now they have to locate adjacent wells as part of their health department approval. So they had that information. You know, we looked at it, and as I said in, I think, one of our agenda meetings, I've had a case south of here in Fishkill where we had an application that involved some rock hammering, and there was adjoining wells, and the wells at that, in that project were quite a bit closer than, you know, these wells here. They were down in Fishkill. We had one well that was 150 feet away. So as part of the secret process, we worked with the health department. And honestly, the health department didn't feel that at 150 feet, it was that much of a concern, but I still wanted the applicant to come up with a monitoring plan for the wells. In this case here, most of the neighboring wells, with the exception of one, most of the neighboring wells appear to be between 350 and 400 feet away from the building. There is one well that's to the north, which is about 200 feet away. So it is something that, you know, we're going to be looking at based upon the prior case I had down in Fishkill. I think that, you know, the health department won't be that concerned about it because of the distance. And I had planned to work with them through the site plan approval process, you know, to verify that. So I don't know that we would need to go to the level of what we did, you know, in Fishkill. But again, it was something that we need to be concerned about. So as far as the applicant's plan, they have a bunch of notes on the plan. And again, these are very, you know, preliminary at this point because we're just into the secret process. But, you know, their first option is to, if they encounter any rock. And oh, by the way, I do want to say that I am going to ask for some more deep test holes, assuming that the project gets past, you know, the ZBA and we get into site plan approval. I am going to ask for some more deep hole tests within the building area and also within the stormwater area in, you know, the back, so that we can really further, you know, define where the rock excavation is going to be. But the notes they have on the plan, the first option would be to, you know, hammer the rock if they can. Now, you know, that's okay. You know, that is not as much of a concern if they were going to blast. But, you know, again, if, you know, depending on the type of rock, if it's very, very hard, you know, you don't want to sit there for weeks and weeks and weeks and hammer and hammer and hammer. you know, that's obviously costly to the project, but, you know, more importantly, it's also much longer of like a nuisance to, you know, neighbors. So, so they do have the option on there of blasting. So the town doesn't have specific blasting regulations, but blasting is overseen by regulations established by the state. So anytime there's a blast, there's got to be a licensed, you know, blaster. They have to come up with a plan, and they have to survey all the surrounding, you know, properties. They have to determine where houses are, where items of critical like importance are that might be affected by the blast, which would include wells. And then they have to come up with a plan that based upon the distance to these sensitive features. Then they figure out, I don't know the exact terminology because I don't get involved with blasting too much, but you know, they have to basically figure out how much of a charge, if you will, that they will put into the ground to loosen up the rock. They figure out the charge based upon, you know, the distance to sensitive, you know, receptors. And then they also have to do, depending on, you know, the distances to houses and such, they have to do a pre-blast, you know, survey, you know, assuming that, you know, the residents, the adjoining residents would allow them access to the house, because they have to, you know, like document that for their insurance. So there's a whole list of things that has to happen before somebody goes out like in blast. It's not, you know, like the old days where you just go out and I can do it. It's very like controlled now. And I believe the town building inspector gets a copy of their blasting like plan. So as far as, you know, the rock goes, it is something that we're definitely like aware of. We're definitely concerned about it. And, you know, we're going to come up, you know, with ways, you know, to mitigate it. And again, I'm going to speak to the health department in terms of, you know, the distances that we have here as far as, you know, the wells go. Now, you know, we do want to mention, because we asked the applicants in a Zoom call we had a few weeks ago about if you're going to excavate some rock, you know, if it ends up to be a big enough, you know, quantity, are you going to look to reprocess that material on the site rather than just haul it off in trucks? That's usually what happens today. You bring in, you know, a rock crusher and, you know, you crush it, you know, and reuse it on the site. So the applicants had you know, indicated that if there is enough quantity of rock, that they certainly might, you know, consider that. So in part of the seeker evaluation that, you know, was done, I believe we put some language in there in regards to the possibility of a crusher. But again, you know, the crusher would be limited to normal, you know, work hours, and both, you know, the rock hammering and any rock crushing would have to conform to the Hyde Park noise like ordinance, which like restricts certain levels of noise between certain like hours. Obviously not, I don't remember the exact times, but, you know, nothing past probably 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, you know, nothing before maybe 8 o'clock in the morning.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. Tad can fill you in on that, but it's 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Okay, well, you know, again, we can, you know, assuming this project proceeds past the ZBA, we can certainly, and I think that we should, you know, change those hours and make it part of, you know, a site plan, you know, review for this project, because, you know, rock crushing obviously can be very annoying. So that's basically my take on the stormwater and the rock excavation. We know it's a concern. We're going to work our hardest to address it. And I think that's about it.
I'd just like to interject for a moment that I'd never been part of blasting either until I was invited to do some blasting, to actually push the plunger for the hotel that's going across from the CIA. So as Mr. Sotero mentioned, They are required to be licensed and fully insured. All the protocols he mentioned are listed there's rather extensive notes on the plans right now. There's also notice provided for neighbors and to the town. I think it's at least a week and then again 2 days before any blasting occurs. There's also, I was expecting to hear really loud noises when I was present on site. There are these big blast mats, that's what they're called. And when you blast, it muffles the sound and it really reduces the amount of rubble and dust that comes up. It was sort of, for me, it was really interesting because I know how each one of them weighed, I think they said 4,000 pounds. And this is obviously a hotel and you're doing footings for a 5-story hotel. So we went pretty deep, but watching these 4,000 pound mats just flutter up like they were tissues and go back down was interesting to say the least, but it really does help mitigate in terms of what the impacts are for anybody around you. So that's one thing. Two, this also goes to the police department, the notice goes to the police department and the building inspector, and Pete is right. Both the plan is given to the building inspector and he gets notice 2 days before, like the police do as well, and to the general public. Ms. Moss, may I call on you to speak next?
I don't really have anything. We're working our way through the ZBA and the scale issue. And I think we're on track.
So one thing that you and I had spoken about earlier was trying to identify the source of the waters that lead into the pipe. I know that when Ms. Zerfas gave us her last response, it was basically that it's an unknown where the water comes from. It's kind of mysterious how a pipe on another parcel is taking water from other properties, channelizing and putting it into a wetland without any kind of easement. I don't know, I guess back in the day, somebody just went and said, I'll pipe this and that's it, even though they didn't own it. Or maybe they did, who knows? But that's not standard practice, particularly not these days. So
I'm hoping that the applicant will identify the source that's entering the pipe, and hopefully it's not a DOT drain.
For our guests who joined us, the town, we are called an MS4 town, meaning there's 4 S's. We manage our own stormwater. Tad is actually our stormwater management officer. That's an actual title, a SMO, as well as our zoning administrator. And the town is supposed to not let what I'll call polluted or dirty water onto other sites. It's supposed to treat it and maintain the sediment. So that's why I think you're asking of what the source is to see how what we could sort of figure out. If it's coming off other lands, that's one thing, but if it's coming out of the DOT drainage system, that's quite another. Correct, Tad?
Yeah, that's correct. I don't think there are any DOT storm drains around there, but it'd be good to confirm that it's not DOT. If it is DOT, we'll have to, figure out what we're going to do.
But either way, the applicants confirmed that they're still going to continue accepting the water. So it's not like they're going to create a blockage and an issue somewhere else at this point.
In other words, it'll all just still be taken into a larger, not a wetland that exists now, but an actual, a man-made wetland, the stormwater detention pond. Ms. Polidoro, you interjected. Any comments you want to add tonight?
Just that we're still in the secret process. The zoning board can't rule on the variance request until this board completes the environmental review. We looked into the stormwater issue after the last meeting, and I was a little concerned about trespass, the same issue that Pete raised about water going onto the neighboring property. And the rules seem to be that as long as you're not channelizing the water into a pipe or, conveyance, that it's not trespass.
In other words, no pipe, no drain, no ditch.
Right.
Thank you. Anything else?
That's it for now.
Let me start with board members. Ms. DiNapoli, comments?
No, I want to say how I appreciate going to the site. I thought it was extremely helpful and put things into perspective than just looking at paper and trying to figure out where everything is. I look forward this evening to hearing the comments of the neighbors.
Thank you. Ms. Wasser? You're muted, Stephanie.
I would echo Diane's comments. I'm looking forward to hearing our guests' comments this evening.
Thank you. Ms. Weiser?
I concur with my board members, and I have nothing else to add.
Vice Chair Dexter?
I also concur, but I just wanted to note that when we did the site walk, I had never realized before how much 9G and East Dorsey are almost parallel there for a while. I thought it went more due east, and it was, you know, until you walk some of these sites, you don't really understand how things are really laid out. So that was an eye opener, but I am looking forward to the comments.
Thank you. Mr. Oliver?
Sorry I could not attend the site walk, but I do not have any additional comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pickett?
Yes, I think the site walk went well. I think obviously there were some water issues that need to be resourced a little bit more and addressed, and I'm looking forward to hearing the comments from the proposed neighbors.
Before I start calling on the individuals who signed up to speak, I just want to let you know, and I'm saying this in the friendliest way possible, we may not respond to you. We typically don't. What we normally do is the applicant's representatives will take note of your questions, and then they'll respond to us. We'll read them into the record next time, or we'll forward them. If we have your emails, we can forward them to you. You can also FOIL. But that's typically the way this works, is we have the applicants respond rather than us. The first person who signed up is Susan DiGilio. Susan?
Yes. Hi, thank you. I've lived here for 47 years. My husband's family actually used to own that property. His grandfather had a farm there. It's right now a nice quiet neighborhood. We do get a lot of traffic on Dorsey Lane and 9G. And as someone just mentioned, the two roads going together, sometimes the traffic is so noisy. I have trouble hearing the TV or even hearing some parts of this meeting tonight. I also, I wouldn't want to see 27 houses go in there either. But I also wanted to mention that our water, on a normal basis, my well is fine. If I have a Thanksgiving dinner and my family's here and we're washing dishes, my well, I can't get water out of the well. Everything kind of stops, my pump stops working, and you know, I have to call in John and get that fixed. So I'm worried about the water, the aquifer, the amount of water being used for a building that size with that many people. And that's all I have right now.
Can I just do a quick follow-up with you, Ms. DiGilio? Yes. I know where your address is, 23, but I don't know where that is in relation to.
I'm 35.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're 35. You're the first one to sign up. It's Mr. DePressi's 23. The best way for you to tell me is how far are you from that the auto body place?
So the auto body, and there's a house to the left, and I'm the next house.
Okay, so you're 2 doors down from the auto shop.
Yes.
Thank you. When you mention the aquifer, that's a good point, and I'm going to ask Mr. Sotero later on, or someone to let's figure out where the water flow is if possible.
Okay.
Mr. DePressi.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, fine. Thanks.
Okay. I got a couple of questions. One, like my wife read in, I'm not home right now, but her concern was the flooding, and earlier you had spoke about a pipe. Are you referring to the pipe that runs underneath all of these properties that comes from 9G?
I did not. We don't know if there's a pipe that takes all your water and puts it down there. We don't know the source of the water right now.
Okay. Well, just to give you a little heads up, there is a pipe that runs underneath all of these backyards. Nobody knows where it comes from. Nobody knows where it even goes. That was found accidentally in my backyard during an inspection right before I bought my house. My other main concern is, one, is this building going to be sprinklered? Two, put this lightly, like somebody else had said, there's a lot of traffic on this road. And my understanding from the zoning board was that they were not going to use the 31 East Dorsey Lane entrance.
They are not.
And it's still listed on all the paperwork as 31 East Dorsey Lane. Me personally, I would like to see that come off whatever future paperwork is going to be on with this address, because that raises a whole nother list of questions for this road. My other main concern is they talk about blasting and blast mats. I've done excavation and blasting for a very, very long time. The problem with blast mats in a residential area this close, yes, it holds the blast down, but the blast needs to go somewhere. The shock wave underground that blast can give off is unrealistic. Just like everybody else, I have concerns about my septic system, my well, not just my well, but other underground aquifers. And my biggest gripe with this whole thing, and it's nothing against Hospice, it's nothing against anybody else that would be building there, is I don't care how anybody looks at it, it's a commercial building. Because it has residents in it, it can be classified as a residential building. It is a commercial building by building codes in a residential area. I don't see how anybody can get around that. You look up New York State building codes or anything else, it's classified as a commercial building.
I'll just add that I was merely referring to how our code treats it in terms of the requirements for landscape screening, in other words. That's all. But I agree with you. Under the building code, it is a commercial building. It's just how it's a building codes and zoning codes don't always line up. The other thing is, I don't know if it's being required to be sprinklered because that's building code, that's not planning board code. But we have referred this around to other agencies, including the fire department, who I believe that you're probably there right now. I think you're at Roosevelt. I could be wrong, but if so, they'll probably be asking for it to be sprinklered as well, but that's a concern for the building department. And then I wasn't really meaning that there would be blasting pads at this site if they have to blast. I was sort of just describing the process generally because I'd never seen these before, but they're going much deeper at the hotel than here. This is not.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying because I've been around it for a long time. I used to do heavy excavation and blasting myself in construction. But that, that's people that don't know that, the shock wave a blast can give off is ridiculous if they have to go that route. And me personally, these backyards are full of rock because I don't really care what anybody says. These yards all hold water because of the rock. The soil back here is not perkable at all. The rain the other day that we had, the next morning, it looked like a lake in my backyard because the water just holds and it doesn't go anywhere. It takes forever for the water to recede in these properties. But somebody had said something about earlier that the water runoff gets carried somewhere in a culvert or something. I've never seen any water go anywhere.
Interesting thing to hear you say that there's a pipe that runs through all the backyards. Do you know what the pipe is made of? Do you possibly recall?
I bought my house almost 13 years ago. All I know is the inspector said it's an old underground pipe.
Possibly clay from back then, depending on how old it was. Thank you. Any other comments you would like to add, Mr. DePressy?
No, that's pretty much, like I said, it's nothing against them. It's just, just concerns that are raised by everybody.
I was going to say, when people, we appreciate hearing from neighbors. I can't tell you that enough. We actually don't always have people come out and speak about anything. It gives us a better way to review the project, to have people who live nearby firsthand to tell us what their experiences are. Although, like everybody in Hyde Park, there's only certain places where you can live in this town where you have run-of-the-bank gravel for most of us, and I'm one of them. I'm on rock too. I know what you mean by my neighbors, whom Tad is one, used to joke that I could have an ice skating rink in the middle of the lawn during winter because it was so big.
Oh, yeah,
Tad's nodding.
My yard's an ice rink, that's for sure.
Yeah, I got the same thing, and we've taken some measures to prevent that now, so it's not quite as bad as it used to be. The next person who signed up is Donna. Is it Hudak?
May I just quickly address the comment about the address?
Yes.
I just want to say that moving forward, the application materials and the notices will still have to have both addresses because it's two separate parcels at this point. So the address doesn't have anything to do with where the entrance is going to be.
They've applied, however, to combine the lots, so there would no longer be the East Dorsey lot because the entrance they're proposing and the exit is on 9G. I don't even think it would be safe to have an entrance and exit right there on Dorsey. The turn right there, and Ms. DiGilio, I know there's lots of neighbors, not just you on East Dorsey, but the West Dorsey neighborhood as well, who complain basically frequently to the town about the speed that cars go there. And I've witnessed it myself. I've seen it. It makes me crazy because West Dorsey in particular is way too windy. People are going that fast. And East Dorsey, your turning radiuses are not as bad, but it's still not that great. And it makes me crazy because people use that as a cut through to get over to go back the back way to Cream Street, et cetera. So I know what you're talking about. And I do empathize, I assure you.
Not only
I happen to live on
we're in a school zone. The speed limit on 9G, a major highway, is 35 and we're 40. And my understanding was a petition went through the town approved it, but the county turned down the speed limit to lower the speed limit. I mean, it's not for this meeting, but just, you know.
No, if that's the case, you should contact your county legislator, who I believe is Mr. Truitt, to see if you can, that would be DCDPW who turned that down.
It went all the way up the chain and the county DOT turned it down.
Dorsey Lane is a county road there, I believe. So that would be DCDPW.
Correct. Yeah.
So but you should keep up pressure because I think the speed limit's ridiculous in through that area. Ms. Hudak, you're muted still, Donna. You're muted still.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, it's a pleasure to meet everybody. Thank you for hearing our comments. So I'm concerned about pretty much everything that everyone else said. The lights from the parking lot is a great concern for me when the trees are removed. So I would hope that there would be plenty of trees that would remain and maybe planted, and you know, something like that could be done. And also the blasting of the rock and the water is the same thing. I live next door to Sal.
Right.
And I grew up on the street, and I can tell you, my dad would say that there was a pipe going all through everyone's all the neighborhood backyards. So we all have a pipe there, and all of our yards flood. We all have ice skating rinks back there. So, but pretty much Mr. Sotero answered the questions. I had concerns about the bedrock, the serious bedrock removal, and the blasting, of course. And then one other thing though that I did want to know, like for pre and post construction, right? But what about during? So what about if something happens, we have a bad storm and there's no, means to drain and something happens?
Can you answer that one? Or Michelle?
You want me to answer it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's more of an engineering issue than it is.
Oh, I thought that you were going to do that. Yeah, Donna. As part of the project, if it does proceed, that they have to come up with a soil and erosion control plan, which is basically for during the construction process. And that includes a phasing plan as to how they're going to manage any stormwater runoff during the construction period until such time as the permanent facilities are built. So that's all taken into account as we go through the site plan process.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because we just want to protect our property. It's just a little scary. And the wells are so shallow that we have. That's a concern from the blasting too. So don't want any damage to my well.
Are you the person who who Bob Camp contacted me about? You moved back here?
Yes, yes.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Glad to have you here, a Hyde Park native again. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I want to promise each neighbor we are taking your comments seriously, as are the applicants. And as I said, these are things that it's good for us to hear because none of us live directly nearby. You do. Sometimes there are applications that we know familiarly because we live near them, any of us. But for the most part, I know there's rock because we know this area. It's not that far from the SPCA, and when they were going through their renovation, they were not aware of how much rock there was down there either. So it's part of Hyde Park. It continues all the way, down that way.
Yes.
Anything else, Ms. Hudak?
No, and just to comment on Jillian's comment about our backyards, and I know because we don't have our front yards anymore because of the speed limit, being so crazy. We enjoy our backyards. So that's just very important to all of us. So the aesthetics is very important. Keep the trees.
Well, we'll make sure, as I said, because this is a special use permit, we'll make sure that there's adequate landscaping. And I believe it was Ms. Axelson, our planning consultant, who at the beginning said, as we move forward, it get more stormwater details resolved. We'll know how much natural vegetation that's there now can remain and how much will have to be supplemented back in there. But we'll make certain there's conifers, evergreens as well, because that's always one of my big concerns. Mr. DePressy is right. This is sort of a commercial application, even though under our code, it's residential. We don't want to have lights shining into your bedrooms at night, et cetera. And I can tell you too, Mr. Kaminsky and Hospice doesn't want that either. They want to be good neighbors. From what I can tell, because we've already worked with them on another application. Ms. Tansey, or Mr. Tansey, you're muted. Do you want to speak? If you can't unmute, you can use the space bar. Just hold it down, and you can speak then. Can you hear me, Mr. Tansey? If you hold your space button down while you speak, it should take you off mute. The bar you hit to add a space between words when you're typing. You're still muted for us. We can't hear you.
Help is on the way. Thank God for young people.
If you go to the bottom left of your screen, there should be a microphone symbol that you can press.
It might be on the upper right-hand corner as well.
It depends on if you're on a Mac, an Apple, or a cell phone.
Yes, that's true.
Do we have anybody else we could go to in the meantime, or?
So we had a Silvana Volino, but Mary Jo Curran is the name on the screen. Ms. Curran, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi.
Oh, thank you. We hear you.
Thank you.
We worked on some technical difficulties. We'll hear your comments.
All right, we'll move next.
Thank you very much for taking our concerns.
Always.
For our concerns. It really does mean a lot. One of my big concerns was how it's going to look. Because I'll have a view outside all my windows of, even though I'm across the street, it'll be in view. And I'm just hoping that it's not going to be, an eyesore for us.
Have you seen the building, Ms. Curran?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. I'm just hoping that the neighborhood can stay residential and quiet. That's the thing. It has been a very quiet place to live, and we would like it to stay that way. My husband and I are very happy here, and we also are concerned about our well, even though we're a distance away, because we've had a lot of problems with our well, a lot of problems with water on the property, just like across the street. And hopefully there'll be trees to block the lighting and to block the building somewhat. You know, I don't know how much is going to be blocked from my view. But what is
your address, ma'am?
It's 22 East Dorsey on the other side of the street. I'm across from 23. Right across from 23. So
we ensure that lighting aims down rather than goes up.
Okay.
And our code has a maximum height. We also will make sure that there's screening. For that matter, most of us on the board don't believe that you're going to see the building much from 9G. If you're a little bit elevated, you will probably see it during leaf off season, but there's going to be a lot of screening. We believe that a lot of the trees that are there now can be kept.
Oh, good. That's good to hear. Thank you. And pretty much everybody's covered everything else that I was worried about. So
that's okay. But basically you've all done what my own board does, or my colleagues do. Because if we agree, we just say, I agree with what my colleagues have said. So it's good to hear that you all have the same concerns.
Yes, I think we do.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And I believe the Tansy's microphone issue has been solved.
Okay.
How you doing? I am Mr. Leonard. I've lived here for 28 years. In the 28 years, I have discovered the piping that everyone has been discussing. It was put underground originally back in the 40s as drainage by the county. That has failed. That's why everyone's property is flooding. The road water that comes off of East Dorsey, roughly at 3032, I don't know the house number, it's 30 or 32, the water comes off the road and into the yards. It floods everyone on our side. Now I'm across from Aldrich Automotive. I'm pretty far down the street. I get the water. That's a problem. If you're going to have a major parking lot put into this facility, road water is going to increase. County has refused to fix the drainage on this road. Are you proposing to fix that drainage because of that issue?
We're not going to be doing anything to fix any of the drainage if it's, the county's responsibility, but I will certainly, tomorrow I'll come out and look. You said it's between 30 and 32.
You're more than welcome to come to number 40 and I will show you. All
right,
we'll go over it together. The other issues are just as everyone else has said. My well is 25 feet deep. Anything that shocks the ground is going to affect the wells in this area. I am right across the street from Sue Giglio. That is the neighbor to the property that you are putting in. And our wells will be affected. Is there a proposal that if our wells are affected, that you're going to supply us with water? Because the county has not supplied us with water because of the amount of rock that is here. We can't get gas, we can't get sewer, we can't get water because of the rock that's here. It's too expensive to put in. So all these factors that are proposed for you to blast or drill or do whatever, it's going to affect everyone that's in this area. And there has to be something in place so that we don't have to come out and sue everybody after the fact. If it's something that's in place prior, we need to know about it beforehand. And that's just protecting us as residents, because this is something that it appears as though you've already made your choice of putting this in place, even though we're speaking against it. Board
members never make up their minds. We generally look positively on economic development for the community, but this actually won't be paying taxes. Hospice is a nonprofit. We do look at it as possibly potentially a service that our residents and residents around the county can utilize. There's not a hospice house there's not a facility like this, I should say. The closest one, and I visited it earlier this year, is I believe it's called now my brain just went. It's in, I believe, New Paltz. It's not the Thompson House. It's Kaplan, I think, Kaplan House. I visited earlier this year looking at maybe trying to find a place for my sister. And I can assure everyone it was very quiet around there, but you'd have to go out of county, and that was kind of too far for my sister and her friends to see her during the time. I was lucky enough to have hospice take care of her toward the end in the hospital where she was. But we're not going to answer your questions right now, but that's why we were prepared earlier to try to take a secret determination, it's called. But once I saw this many people, your concerns,
we're all concerned,
postpone this because, of course, we want to hear about it. I should also add that it is illegal for us to say we're going to deny a project just because of quote unquote general community opposition. If it's in your plans and it's an allowed use, and this is an allowed use in this district, then there have to be other reasons for us to deny it than just to say people don't like it or don't want it. Because you don't want to be sued, and we don't want to be sued and be overturned either and have taxpayer dollars going to that. I think that's what would happen.
If I could, I just want to take a minute to explain the role of the planning board.
Thank you.
The planning board is an administrative body in the town. It is obligated by law to review every application that comes before it that meets the zoning. So the town board sets the zoning and decides what will be permissible on every lot in the town. Someone can make an application that meets those requirements, and all this board does is process it, and this board looks at impacts from that particular proposal. So this board is required to review the application. The town has already made a determination that, this kind of use is appropriate for that site. And so this board's job is to look at the particulars of the proposal. So the issues that you've been raising about stormwater drainage, runoff, lights, trees, those are all issues that the planning board can review. Whether or not, the property should be developed with a residential care facility, that's already been decided. It's just whether this site can support it.
Well, I appreciate all the inputs from everyone, and we all do have the same concerns, and a lot of it being residential concerns for the neighboring community. And I hope that that is addressed and looked at for the people that have been paying taxes in Hyde Park.
Mr. Leonard, how would Mr. Sotero contact you to set up a meeting for tomorrow?
He can come right to my front door. I'm home all day.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. You're at home.
Your address again?
40 East Dorsey.
Okay, and your first name?
Brian.
Brian.
I homeschool my 3 kids.
Okay.
You're more than welcome.
Anything else any of you, our guests, want to add tonight? Just to sum, you have shallow wells because apparently the county, we just found out. That's interesting that you knew that, Brian.
It took me 10 years to get approval for me to repair mine.
Wow.
10 years.
So, who issued the approval?
Dutchess County.
So how did you know that they own the pipe? Is there an easement when you bought the property?
It took 10 years for me to find out who owned it because no one wanted to put forth that information. It was originally an easement by the county for the houses that were built here as a storm drain. And it's 4-inch orange Clayburgh pipe. All of it has failed, separated, filled with roots, and plugged. I have repaired mine because I went to the county and I asked permission to repair my own because I was standing in knee-deep water in my yard that runs off of East Dorsey. I had a pond in my driveway every time it rained, and I was tired of it. So I fixed it myself because I couldn't get the county to do it.
Clay pipe, if it was installed in the 1940s, would have failed.
It's still there. It's still there. And it still does work. because we have maintained the orange clayberg between 36 and I believe it's 32, don't quote me. 32, 36 to my house 40 has all been roto-rooted, the roots removed, and it now works. So it's still a working pipe system as long as it's maintained and you know where it is. Finding it is the problem. I know where all of ours are because in 28 years, I've discovered it all.
All right, Brian, I'll come over tomorrow right after lunchtime. All right.
Perfect.
I'm right around
here.
Wait,
no problem.
Wait, just for clarity, Brian, you're on the other side of the street.
Right.
I'm across from Aldrich, correct.
So is there a second pipe that, yes, so there's a pipe on the other side of the street.
Both sides of the road have that pipe.
Yes, both sides have the same piping. You just have to know where it is. And if you don't, we located one 2 years ago that was buried only because the flood waters were so bad, the water was sprouting up out of the ground like a fountain. I located it that way just by accident. And there's actually two that run parallel to each other. Sue has one in the back of her yard also. And this is all drainage that comes from 9G.
Yep. I can tell you where the pipe is in my backyard because it's 3 feet away from the telephone pole.
Perfect. And if the outlets are grown over or have been filled in or the road has actually eroded over it, it's a dead end pipe and the water doesn't go through it. You just have to wait for it to drain down and as seepage. So those are definite issues that everyone here has the same issue. And we're all working together as a community. And right now is evidence that we're all concerned because of these very same issues that we all have.
Kat, it looks as though we might know now the source of the water that's being piped down into the wet area, but it's probably not being piped effectively, it sounds like.
Not effective at all. I apologize to know the information. I apologize.
No, we're glad to hear it.
It's go ahead.
Do you know if there's an outlet? Does it enter into a pond or a wetland?
The pond is actually Doug, my neighbor next door. The pipe comes right out at the edge of my property. Okay. The Board of Health has inspected it. The county has inspected it. I had everybody here for years because of the road water, and no one wanted to take ownership of that piping. I actually got the county to sign a letter over to me, giving me rights to my property with that pipe. Because it wasn't my pipe, I couldn't touch it. And
we'll look at it. We'll look at it.
Yeah, it's here. I can show you. I can show you the repairs I did to it.
I mean, but you know, again, and we'll look at it tomorrow. But if you're across like the road, I guess I'm not understanding how like that pipe, how the hospice project has
any water that would run off of a parking lot and out onto East Dorsey.
Well, it's not gonna. So that's
any water that runs down East Dorsey becomes water to me.
Okay.
It does. We're downhill and it becomes our problem.
But
no matter where the water
would go the other direction, right? It's being designed to go away from East.
Yeah, it's not going to go out. It's not going to go out on a west or east, Dorsey. But I'll come over, Brian, tomorrow.
Come on over. Yeah, and I can show you. It's
okay. That's fine.
Real simple.
All right.
Point of information. I don't know if I can share the screen to just show where the access goes so that the public is at least aware of that.
Councilman, I believe she can share screen, correct?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So this is just the site plan. There's the building and the main driveway goes right out here to Violet Avenue. And there's a stormwater basin here and a possible stormwater basin over here. Nothing is proposed going to East Dorsey on this strip. That's just going to stay whatever it is, grass or woods, to my knowledge.
Is that the 31 East Dorsey Lane?
No.
Yeah, must be.
Hang on a second. I'm looking at another map.
Yeah, it must be. Yeah, let's just keep going.
Yes,
So
that
Liz,
is 31 East Dorsey.
So Liz,
Okay.
if you just move the the cursor to where they're looking at the stormwater pond in the back.
This one
No,
by
not
Violet,
that
or
one.
this one over
That
here?
one. Yeah, right in there. So, that's going to go behind the Aldrich Automotive property.
Okay. Mr. Dupree, can I say something?
Yes, yes.
I am told by my neighbor to the left of me, going towards 9G, who's been here his entire life, that the pipe that we have on our side of the road goes to a water retention pond behind Aldridge Automotive, is supposedly where it dumps into. I have not seen it, but if that's the case, that's right where the second proposed retention pond is, which then, excuse my French, but you know what rolls downhill, is going to go right through that property underground and end up in that gentleman's yard on the other side of the road.
That is correct, because
that way,
Aldrich's property, the pipe runs underneath the road right to me. And it's just the way it is. It's comical that no one knows where all this stuff is unless you live here. And with everyone's assistance, we're all putting our heads together, and you're learning the best information you're ever going to get right now. And I hope it helps you to retain the information and put it on a map, and at least come up with a solid idea.
Okay. All right, we got it. We'll look at it.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. You've given us a lot to digest tonight, as well as the applicant's representatives. Since no one else signed up to speak, and I think we all need to, as I said, digest this and think about it, and then Pete will get back to us after he speaks to Mr. Leonard tomorrow. We'll have more information then. So does anyone else have anything else to add from our team, consultants, board members? There being none, may I get a motion to adjourn this to December 16th?
I'll make that motion. Chris Oliver.
Thank you, Chris.
Second, Ann Dexter.
Thank you. All in favor, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Nays or abstentions? No. Thanks again, neighbors, for telling us all this. As I said, it's a lot to think about, but we'll get to the bottom of it. And you're welcome to attend or watch any of these continued public hearings, because we'll be at this for a while. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael,
the next item on the agenda is a continued public hearing. This one is for Small, which is the last name of the owner, 148 Cream Street. In essence, they're building a second family dwelling that's above a garage. This was sent over to, no, we didn't have to send this over. What am I saying? It requires a site plan, but we did not have to send it to anybody. Ma'am, get a motion to reopen the public hearing.
Yes, so moved. Stephanie Wasser.
Thank you.
Second, Diane Tenapoli.
Thank you. All in favor? Please raise your hand, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Councilman Krupnick, I don't believe that anyone signed up to speak about this application.
That is correct.
Mr. Berta, do you want to add anything? I know some revisions were made based on some work with the Department of Health.
Right. What we did is we did get comments from the Roosevelt Fire Department, and not quite understanding what they meant by a 60-foot tail. But what we did is we had taken the curve out of the driveway a little bit better, and flattened out it out a little bit, as well as providing a soil and erosion control plan to the planning department. Hudson Land Design did that for us. The building was shifted over. We wound up only about another 5 feet shifting it over to the north.
We've all had a chance to review this. Do I have any comments from the consultants? Pete, Tad, or Liz?
No.
I didn't think so. Any comments from the board?
No.
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 There being no further comment, may I get a motion to close the public hearing with the proviso that we will allow 7 days for written comment to be received?
So moved, Diane.
Turn this off.
Second, Stephanie Wasser.
Thank you. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Berta, we'll see you in 2 weeks when we'll have a resolution prepared to consider approval. Okay, doke.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. And good luck at the Northern Lights up there.
If I could get my wife to go, I'd be there tomorrow.
I'm not sure it's a good idea. Actually, it's a good place to go right now. Nobody's up there. You're safe. Right. The next item on the agenda is Belvedere. The applicants are seeking approval, a site plan amendment approval to basically install new landscaping, a fence, and lighting. This was referred to county planning. We got a conditional response, meaning that we are required to have a supermajority should we choose or elect to approve it. We also received a comment from Richard Heidemann, who is one of the neighbors who lives through the access point. They have an easement that goes through this. Before I actually open the public hearing, I just want to point out that Ms. Polidoro gave us a copy of the easement. And if I can put it this way, it's almost criminally vague. There's no meets or bounds. It just says there's an easement and it goes through and they're all going to share for maintenance and et cetera. There's so little specifics to it. And part of what Mr. Heidemann's comments were would probably have been addressed better by a more strongly worded easement. But one of his most important things he did was he pointed out that there was a worry that where the bamboo was proposed in the fence, there wouldn't be adequate width for emergency vehicles. And we know from our work over the years that that's a 20-foot width requirement for the fire department. So I sent a note off to Mr. Smith and to Mr. Morrison of LRC, because they're both joint pages in there, to make sure of that. I don't know if everyone had a chance to review this today because it came in pretty late this afternoon, but Warren sent a digital version with cover letters that pretty much answered the point about the 20 feet. They relocated the bamboo further. They relocated the fence further. They gave a fence maintenance detail. They addressed the different different breaks in the plant barrier for the, my gosh, I've forgotten the name of the bamboo, sorry. We'll call it snow or mountain bamboo. And I did do a little bit of research today on the bamboos, just to make sure what I'd said earlier, this was a non-invasive kind. All bamboo is invasive unless it's clumping, which has its own problems. But this is less invasive, and the way to control this is indeed just through the fence that Warren and his client have proposed. So that noted, may I get a motion to reopen the public hearing?
I'll make the motion. Brent Pickett.
Thank you.
Second, Ann Dexter.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Warren, I just sort of started babbling. Let me turn it over to you.
No, that was fine, Michael. You pointed out that the observation was made in a review amongst you and your consultants that the openings to the driveways to the properties should be 20 feet, and absolutely that's correct. We made that revision right away. The other revisions made to the drawings since our last meeting were based on comments made by board members and by the consultants, which were addressed in the cover letter. I think probably the most salient new thing that came in was the comments from the county planning department. Basically, the sort of current planning orthodoxy is it uplights of any sort are bad. But of course, they didn't have the opportunity to see the lights installed there, which are really ambient landscape lighting meant simply to illuminate the canopies of the trees when the trees have a canopy. But I think the letter from the lighting designers, who obviously use this technique on other sites, explained the intent, which is simply to provide some soft illumination of the landscape features when, particularly when it comes to the plant material, when there was something there to shield it. But there's no intent, certainly no desire on the part of the applicant to create a light pollution or sky glow or anything like that. And I think, again, those of you that had an opportunity to see it there could acknowledge that it really was not creating a glow. You know, when we think of sky glow, you look across the Hudson and you can see where Kingston is because of all the street lights and the malls and so forth. This is a very different situation. And, you know, most new light fixtures are very limited in the light they put out. It's mostly downlight. But these particular lights, because they're very low level landscape lights, are sitting at the ground pointing up. And so you can't actually get a BUG rating, background uplight and glare rating for something pointing up. It's designed for something pointing down. So that's why those particular lights don't have that kind of a rating. But other than that, I guess I would ask the board to base your consideration of the County Planning Department's comments on what you've seen at the site and what we've talked about to date, and the response provided by the lighting designer. But I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have, or any remaining concerns.
In addition to having to do research about what bug was, backlight, uplight, glare, I looked at what CCL was, what CRI was. In essence, if anyone's interested, my colleagues, one is the color rating, we'll call it, the color temperature. And if you have 2000 kelvins, that's considered to be warm. Think about it like a yellowish incandescent bulb. On the other end, if you get to the 5000, 7000 range, then you're gonna think of a white fluorescent bulb in a hospital where you want really clean, crisp light, as they call it. And Heather's comments were about the color temperature, which these, according to the response from L'Observatoire, the lighting consultant, these are going to be on the warm side. She gives the actual kelvins. So your LEDs are actually going to be more soft. In other words, as we saw when we were out there walking, it appeared to be soft. And the CRI is actually measuring how close a bulb matches the natural color found in nature. So if you wanted to have an orangey yellow, how close does it match the orangey yellow, or is it more whitey yellow, et cetera? Believe me, I had such a fun time reading about all this, but in essence, I can say that having read it and I think understanding it, it appears that what we saw with our eyes is what the response was as well to the lighting engineer that provided it, because these are warmer, softer colors. The one bug issue that she did respond to was, as I said, there's a 12.3 that's shown as in one area as a foot candle. And it appears to me it's an aberrant, I'll call it light single monopole, because when I walked it, it's really bright and it does cause a little bit of glare because it's so bright it goes out. I think I said at the last meeting that I would suggest that they just change the bulb or try to shield it so that it's a little bit more down on it. But it's a really old fashioned one. It's leaning to the side. I have a feeling that once the site's open and usable again, they probably will address this because it looks a little khaki, I'll call it, using a
so Michael, I would just say you're correct. That is the existing pole light. That wasn't proposed to be changed, but we can certainly change the bulb in that and or add shielding to that light.
That's because that's really what it needs. I'll also add that if you read the rather colorful descriptions provided by the lighting designer, hierarchies of light. I did follow a lot of what she said. Part of the goal is that when you are on arrival that you see kind of a depth in through the back, but more importantly, at the bottom of the letter, she points out that and we could have this as notes put onto as a condition of approval, have it as to be put on to the actual plans. They're on timers so that when you have leaf off, then they go dim early. They go mostly dim. They don't even turn them on. That's why you haven't seen them. When spring happens and they start to turn on, and as summer happens when there's more foliage, they actually not intensify, but they, I guess the term would be somewhat more brighten the green foliage there. And then as fall comes around, again, it goes lighter and lighter. And it's only when the hotel is or the business is active, so that mostly you'll be seeing these lights, in other words, in spring and summer, because that's when you'll be going outdoors. For the rest, they'd be on for a limited time, and that's it. Again, that's all at the bottom of the letter. And again, I don't know if everybody had a chance to go through it, but I took the time, or had the time, and I saw Stephanie nodding earlier. So first, Councilman Krupnik, I believe no one signed on to speak about this application beyond the written comment we got?
Correct.
Thank you. And yes, we did. Did we move to open this public hearing? I'm having a brain moment. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we did.
Thank you. Okay, comments from consultants. And by the way, Ms. Axelson just texted me, nude sheath bamboo, thank you. Additional comments?
My review is limited because a lot changed from the original application that we'd had, and I do see the 20-foot minimum distance for emergency access. And then I saw the note about notches in the root barrier materials for drainage. So I don't have any other comments.
Thank you. Mr. Sotero?
Oh, no comments.
Ms. Moss?
Oh, I'm fine.
Ms. Polidoro?
No comment.
Comments from the consultants? Stephanie?
Well, so a board member.
I'm sorry.
You want to hire me as a consultant? That's awesome. I just want to say I appreciate the updated letter, Warren. And when I saw the different settings for the seasons, that made me feel very good about the canopy lighting. And it's really dark up there. I really did not have an issue with the lighting that I saw because there's safety issues involved as well for people who are going to be there and walking around. So if you can change that bulb, I think everyone will be happy, but I was comfortable with it. So thank you for the update.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Board Member Wasser. And I will also point out, as I think I made the comment before, when we asked for the lumen schedule, remember it's important under Greenway, the average must be 2.0 foot candles or lower. The average of this site, even including the 12.3, is far lower. It's not even up to a 1. That's, I believe that Warren provided that to us. So, but of note, because I have newer board members who have never had the conditional comments from county planning, we must have 5 votes of yes rather than 4, so it's a supermajority. And we're required to provide a rationale and send that to the county for why we voted that way. So we'll be doing that, assuming that we approve the project as is, and that would be my responsibility to send it over to you guys before it went to her. Ms. Weiser, comments?
Okay.
And you're still
muted.
Yeah, my internet's getting sketchy. So if it gets weird, I'm gonna stop my video. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So yeah, during our sidewalk, I thought that the uplighting we reviewed seemed really quite subtle. And I do appreciate, as Stephanie brought out, that the lighting will change with the seasons to accommodate the plant cycles. I thought that was a really wonderful and tasteful response to having this type of lighting. So that's my only comment.
Thank you. Chris, comments?
I have no comment at this time. Thank you very much for your effort.
Thank you. Thank you. Dexter?
I would concur with my colleagues about the lighting. This is not the classic. I think I know what they're meaning. If they could have done the site walk, probably would not be seeing that as a comment. But when we do see that kind of comment, we do think in terms of like more of an industrial site with lots of blacktop and just lighting, and yeah, it becomes an issue. But this is definitely not the classic issue that you would have on another site. I don't feel.
I would agree. Thank you. Mr. Napoli?
I have a question with the explanation given by the lighting company, and it's on number 2. I'm not sure I'm understanding it correctly. It says lighting control system to automatically dim low and turn off during the active hours of the inn.
Yeah,
So
I believe that's a typo. I think in the inactive hours of the inn, they will be completely off. Yeah, I saw that too.
Okay,
During the active hours, the whole timing sequence and seasonal sequence will be in effect.
Right.
If the inn is inactive or closed, there will be no landscape lighting.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I was not able to go a couple of weeks ago, but I, like most of the other members, went in April, and I know we all felt that the lighting was very appropriate, very smart and subtle. I also remember we were feeling that that was probably the maximum. Mm-hmm. And my concern is always with regards to night pollution. And while this is by no means anywhere near that, My concern would be going down the road in the future. And how do we guard against, 2-3 years from now, adding to it? So I don't know if it's appropriate to ask that what's presently agreed to is the maximum, or that it be written on the site plan so we have a point of reference to go if we ever want to go back to discuss it in the future.
Good point.
Warren has a maximum number listed on the plans.
Okay.
And what would basically happen is what happened before. If someone drives by or if a neighbor said, wait, I see more light, it looks like the light's intensifying, then Ms. Moss, as part of enforcement, code enforcement, would have to, or site plan enforcement, would need to go out there and basically, what a fun job, Tad, count the number of light fixtures she could find and see. There's no other way to do this. And we would just, we can add a note that this is the maximum is approved, et cetera, although that's implied in there. But Victoria, we could work on that for conditions in a resolution. She's nodding. Mr. Pickett, anything else, Diane, to add?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Pickett?
I, like Diane, saw the lighting back in April. Thought it was appropriate, and I look forward to it moving forward. So no additional comments.
So Warren, I think you've heard that we're comfortable with the lighting as proposed and the responses and the notes, or the sequencing of when they're turned on and turned off as seasonal purposes. Because we hadn't received anything until today, I was prepared to ask for an adjournment to the 16th. But if everyone's in agreement, I believe that we can, based on the comments I heard, I believe we could close the public hearing tonight and consider taking action with the proviso that we still have 7 more days to receive written comment and consider taking action at the next meeting on the 16th. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yeah.
So can I just interject one quick thing?
Yep.
As I'm looking at the lighting plan, there are a couple items on there. I don't know what they are. They're like, it looks like somebody dropped a pin on the lighting map and they're like,
can you share the screen? Because we can't see what you're looking at.
That's, I just want to raise it because I see it on the other one. I just don't know what they are.
Okay.
So I'm zooming back out and you can see there's a little purple thing there and a purple thing there. And I know that there are 70 light fixtures shown in the schedule, but this isn't really a symbol. So I don't know what it is. Doesn't look like a tree, but.
There's nothing in the key?
Not that I see.
No.
It looks like that. So that's just a question. If we can have that clarified. And...
I can clarify that and remove them as, yeah.
Okay. That's all I got.
Thank you. I should have added, in case some of the neighbors are listening, that again, the fence and the bamboo were moved outer so that there is 20-foot clearance guaranteed. And snow storage is now shown. We asked that for Warren to show last time. It's now shown clearly where the snow should go as well. And it's shown in an area not to obstruct access or exit from the neighbors if there's any kind of snow incident. It should all be pushed over to the side to make sure that that stays clear. Thank you for showing that too, Warren. Anybody else? Do you want to wait and keep the public hearing open? I mean, I think we're ready to close it, but I don't think those purple lollipop things.
I would make the motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I would make the motion to close it also, Brent Pickett.
Thank you. All in favor, please raise your hand, say aye.
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 Nays or abstentions, there being none, the motion carries unanimously. Warren, it's like birthing a child. I feel like this has been a really long, maybe a baby elephant. It was like a 24-month gestation period there. Congratulations.
Moving an elephant, right, from Afghanistan.
Congratulations, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. We'll work on a resolution beforehand and send it over.
All right, very good. I'll clarify these remaining questions.
Thank you very much. Pleasure working with you as always.
Yeah, thank you.
The next item on the agenda is a continued public hearing for Hyde Park Town Center Park Plaza. If you recall, we had at the last meeting, we didn't have plans. We did authorize Cynthia to refer these to county planning and anybody else once they were received. We just received them, I believe, yesterday digitally, and we received them, I think today in paper, but I never heard back from Ms. Hampson, or Anne Marie Hampson, our Ted's secretary in the office. Kelly was unable to make the meeting tonight, and since I didn't think anybody had a chance to really look at everything yet.
No.
She asked that we would just adjourn it to December 16th. So first I need a motion to reopen the public hearing.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second, Chris Oliver.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Any comment from anybody? Liz, anybody? I mean, I myself, I looked at Belvedere because we're so close to the end, but I haven't had a chance to look at this one yet either myself.
Haven't had a chance yet.
Okay, then what we'll do is, and to confirm, Councilman Krupnick, no one signed up to speak about this application?
Correct.
Thank you. So may I get a motion to close, to adjourn the public hearing to December 16th?
I'll make that motion, Chris Oliver.
Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. All in favor, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. The next item on the agenda under other business is a site plan waiver for a front addition and a fairly large attached garage. Councilman Krupnick, I believe Ms. Tarcio is here. Lauren, if you can hear us, do you want to join us?
Good evening, everyone. I'm here.
Hello, can you join us by video so we can meet you?
I don't have a camera, unfortunately.
Okay, well, so I'm going to introduce this resolution, but only because I'm your neighbor down the street. I live at 30 Curry Lane, just down the way. And I wanted to welcome you to the neighborhood and to town. So
thank you.
We have a recommendation from Tad. Anybody have any questions or comments before I introduce the resolution? Site plan waiver, Town Code Section 108-9.4 C2, Resolution 2020-26, December 2nd, 2020. Whereas an application requesting a waiver of site plan has been made to the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board by Lauren Torcio on November 11th, 2020 for property located at 13 Curry Lane in the Town of Hyde Park. And whereas, now therefore be it resolved, the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board hereby waives site plan requirements for the file entitled Torcio regarding the specific request that's submitted November 11th, 2020 and in the building permit application file dated June 23rd, 2020.
Second, Ann Dexter.
Thank you, Vice Chair. See, Ms. Tarcio, I was trying to give you special treatment. The Chair and the Vice Chair did that for you. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Lauren, I look forward to meeting you down as a neighbor. I'm the big blue house on the opposite side of you, south of you.
Yeah, I think we've passed each other on the street walking the dogs.
That's my husband. That's my significant other walking the dog. Now that I think about it, I believe he did say he met you. So at any rate, I look forward to meeting you myself.
Great.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry you had to wait for all this. Have a nice night.
And Lauren, hello from Liz. We're colleagues here at CPO. So.
Oh, hi, Liz.
Hi, Lauren.
Lauren, what office are you in? Obviously not the Hyde Park one.
I'm in the Newburgh office.
Okay. Well, glad to have you in Hyde Park, and I hope you really enjoy the property. It's a great spot.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
The next item on the agenda is another site plan waiver. We have a recommendation from TAD for it. It's located in the scenic area of statewide significance at 11 Hudson Drive. It's referral placement windows. This is not visible as far as I know from the river or the two historic sites. And I believe Ms. Wasser is going to introduce this resolution.
Yes, thanks. Okay, Richard and Jesse Fitzgerald, 11 Hudson Drive, window replacements, site plan waiver, Town Code Section 108-9.4 C2, December 2nd, 2020. Resolution 2020-27. Whereas an application requesting a waiver of site plan has been made to the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board by Mr. and Mrs. Fitzgerald on November 23rd, 2020 for property located at 11 Hudson Drive in the Town of Hyde Park. And whereas, now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board hereby waives site plan requirements for the proposed changes as described in the building permit received by the building department on November 9th, 2020, and per the request to the planning board dated November 23rd, 2020.
Seconded, Templin.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Consultants, you're free to pop off because we're almost done.
Good
See you in
night,
2
everybody.
weeks.
Wait, I have a question.
Agenda session. Thank you.
I have a question first, Michael.
Yeah.
What are we going to do without your holiday eggnog?
Uh-oh.
Pete, so Pete, you weren't here. We're going to meet before the 16th at about 3 or 4 at Town Hall. I'm going to make holiday eggnog for everybody.
Then we're going to drive.
And we're gonna, you're going to go back to your home, and then you can drink at home. When we end the meeting, we're going to have a festive, and you didn't hear it because you came late. I'm also making chocolate bourbon balls and almond snowflakes.
You know this is out live on YouTube, right? We're gonna have a whole party. We're gonna have a party in the parking lot.
It'll be a party to take. It'll be a party to take home.
It's a takeaway party.
But I mean, Pete, I agreed. I said it's too depressing not to get together.
Yes.
Fully masked, and I'll have a folding table where you can approach. It'll be done individually in little jars for every person with your name on it, etc. I'm not going to have time to do the pecans, I don't think, this year. That's all. So
we'll let you off easy this year.
Ever the host.
That's why I'm doing the bourbon pecan balls, etc. So
That should be a real fun meeting.
Well, as long as you don't drink beforehand, it will be.
Whatever.
Or it'll be very relaxed, one of the two.
That's like the beauty about, the Zoom meetings.
Yep. And by the way, the beauty about the Zoom meeting tonight was all those neighbors were able to sort of participate in a round robin that I wouldn't really allow that if we were doing that at Town Hall, but we had a lot of input on that. And interesting to learn that it's the county that did this originally, but I did hear Mr. Leonard say that the water came from 9G, which I'm not understanding that. That means that DOT and the county had to somehow cooperate.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Anyway, put on your Sherlock Holmes outfit tomorrow and be prepared to sleuth.
Okay. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Everybody.
Good night.
May I get a motion to go? May I get a motion to go into executive session to discuss a personnel issue? And I promise it'll be quick.
So moved. Ann Dexter.
Second, Ann Weiser.
Favor? Please say aye.
Aye.
Are we going to go?
Krupnick, you'll need to stop recording.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are now back in regular session. There were no decisions made, as always, in executive session. May I get a motion to adjourn?
Make the motion, Brent Pickett.
Thank you.
Second, Chris Oliver.
Thank you. All in favor, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Councilman Krupnick and Supervisor Rohr, as always, for providing the Zoom services for us.
Thank you, Neil.
Everyone have a nice night.
Thank you.
And Stephanie, who else is not going to be here on the 16th? Oh, Ann. Woo!
I have planning board. I mean, not planning board. I have walkway.
Walkway, you're the new co-chair or co-vice chair, or whatever.
That means that no one's at the agenda meeting Thursday as of this moment, but anyone who wants to be on the agenda meeting on the 10th.
You can still.
I'm happy to still go.
I was to say, just because you're not there doesn't mean you can't attend.
I'm happy to go, and it's my birthday, so like I'll be there.
The 16th. Oh, the agenda's your birthday. Make note.
I would love to spend it no other way, so I'm happy to be on.
You're becoming a land use junkie nerd like the rest of us.
Okay, Since Stephanie's in Boston, I'll take her share of goodies.
You may have them. Well, I'll have to discuss with Michael.
I will work that out with you. I'll work out a drop off before. Do not worry for you. And otherwise, have a nice night. See you in 2 weeks.
Thank you, everybody.
Everybody.
Feel better.
Thank you.